Picture this. All right, you're working on this huge project, building a railway bridge through the African savannah in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
Tough job, right? But what if the biggest threat isn't the heat or the hard labor, but a pair of man-eating lions
Oh, wow.
with a taste for terror?
Yikes.
That's exactly what happened in Savo, Kenya back in 1898. Two male lions, infamous as the Savo Maneaters, they held an entire railway construction project hostage for 9 long months.
It's such a captivating story, you know. It really captures our imagination because it speaks to our primal fear of predators, but it also raises some really fascinating questions about lion behavior and the impact of humans encroaching on their territory and just the psychology of fear itself.
And what really struck me was how utterly relentless these lions were. It wasn't just about survival, it was like they were deliberately targeting humans,
Right.
turning the entire campsite into their own twisted hunting ground.
That's one of the things that makes this case so unusual. Man-eating in lions is really rare. Typically, there are underlying factors that push them to target humans, like injury disease or a shortage of their usual prey.
Yeah.
But the Savo lions kind of seem to defy those explanations.
So let's take a closer look at what actually happened. We're talking thousands of workers, mainly Indian, spread out across this vast construction site along the Savo River. Enter Lieutenant Colonel John Henry Patterson, the man in charge of the project. He arrives just as things are about to take a terrifying turn.
Right from the start, there's this sense of unease. A porter disappears, his body later found mutilated. Patterson initially thinks it's a rogue lion, but he has no idea the scale of the threat he's facing.
And it escalates quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like these lions were testing the boundaries, each attack becoming bolder than the last.
Absolutely. Initially, the lions hunted individually, picking off workers on the outskirts of the camp. But then they began entering the camp together, each taking a victim in a coordinated attack. Can you imagine the terror those workers must have felt knowing these predators were lurking just outside their tents, capable of breaching any defenses they put up?
And those defenses were pretty elaborate, weren't they?
Yeah.
They tried everything to keep the lions out.
They did. Campfires were kept burning all night, and they built these thorn fences called bomas enclosures, meant to keep livestock in and predators out around their tents. But the lions just leaped over them or crawled right through them. Nothing seemed to deter them.
It's almost like they were toying with their victims, creating an atmosphere of constant dread.
That's a chilling thought, but you're right. There's a sense that these lions weren't just hunting for food. They were asserting their dominance, terrorizing an entire community.
And the impact on the project was devastating. Construction on the bridge came to a grinding halt as hundreds of workers, terrified for their lives, simply fled.
And it wasn't just the workers who were at risk. Even colonial officials became targets. Mr. Whitehead, the district officer, had a very close call, and tragically his assistant Abdullah was killed.
So even those in positions of authority weren't safe. It must have felt like these lions were unstoppable, completely in control.
Absolutely. And this is where the story takes on an almost mythical quality. Patterson, now personally invested in stopping the lions, he dedicates himself to hunting them down. He meticulously documents his pursuit, describing the dense bush, the lions cunning their ability to vanish into thin air. It was a true battle of wits, a classic hunter versus hunted scenario.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine the pressure he must have been under. The project stalled, his men are living in terror, and he's facing these almost supernatural predators.
He even describes setting traps using goats as bait, only to have the lions outsmart him at every turn. They seem to anticipate his every move almost like they were enjoying the challenge.
It sounds incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
Did he ever doubt his ability to catch them?
Oh, I'm sure there were moments of doubt. Weeks turned into months, and the lions continued their reign of terror. But Patterson was relentless. He refused to give up. Finally, after weeks of pursuit, he managed to kill the first lion on December 9th.
What a relief that must have been. A moment of triumph after all that struggle.
You'd think so, right? But the story doesn't end there. The second lion, almost as if seeking revenge for its fallen partner, became even more elusive and dangerous. It continued to stalk the camp, its attacks even more brazen than before.
So even after killing one of the lions, the threat wasn't over. That must have been terrifying for Patterson and the remaining workers. They thought it was over, only to find themselves right back in the nightmare.
Imagine the psychological impact of that. You finally think you're safe only to have that sense of security shattered. It took Patterson nearly 3 more weeks of relentless hunting before he finally brought down the second lion.
It's almost hard to believe that two animals could cause so much chaos and fear.
It really speaks to the power of nature, the raw instinct of a predator, and the ripple effects that can occur when those instincts are amplified by circumstance.
And of course, Patterson's account of these events, his book, became a sensation. He even kept the lions' skins and skulls as trophies, which eventually ended up in the Field Museum in Chicago.
Those remains played a crucial role in a recent scientific analysis that helped to clarify one of the most enduring mysteries surrounding the Savo Maneaters, the actual number of victims. You see, Patterson claimed that the lions killed 135 people, a staggering number.
Wow, that's a huge number.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember you mentioned earlier that the official railway company records put the death toll much lower. Didn't they say it was closer to 28?
Exactly. So for years, there was this massive discrepancy in the accounts. Was Patterson exaggerating the danger to boost his own fame? Or was the company downplaying the tragedy to avoid scrutiny?
So how did they finally get to the bottom of it?
Well, scientists were able to analyze hair and bone collagen from the lion's remains using modern techniques like chemical isotope analysis. This allowed them to determine what the lions had been eating in the months leading up to their deaths.
And what did they find? Was Patterson's claim accurate?
The tests did confirm that the lions had consumed human flesh, but the number of victims they identified was 35, far fewer than Patterson's claim, but still significantly higher than the official company records.
So somewhere in between the two extremes. It just goes to show how easily facts can become distorted in a story as dramatic and terrifying as this one. But those 35 lives lost highlight the tragic consequences of this terrifying saga.
It's a powerful reminder of the complex relationship between humans and the natural world. These lions, driven by factors we may never fully understand, terrorized an entire community, bringing a major construction project to a standstill and leaving a legacy of fear that persists to this day.
Yeah, it really makes you think what was going on in those lions' heads. Was it just hunger driving them, or was there something more like a deliberate intention to instill fear?
Yeah.
Assert their dominance over this human intrusion into their territory.
Yeah, it's chilling to think about, but their actions definitely suggest a level of intelligence and planning that goes beyond basic survival instincts. The way they targeted their victims, the way they bypassed every defense the workers put up, it's almost like they were playing a deadly game.
Exactly, and that's what makes this story so compelling. It challenges our understanding of predator behavior and forces us to confront the darker side of nature. Knowing what we know about the environmental conditions at the time, the drought, the rinderpest outbreak that decimated their usual prey, it's easy to see how desperation might have played a role.
Absolutely. But we also have to consider the possibility that these lions were simply predisposed to this kind of behavior. There's a theory that maybe one or both of them had been injured, making it difficult for them to hunt their normal prey, or maybe they had scavenged on human remains at some point and developed a taste for human flesh.
That's a pretty gruesome thought, but it makes you wonder if there was something more than just circumstance at play here.
It's a question that continues to fascinate researchers. Were these lions simply products of their environment driven to extremes by forces beyond their control? Or was there something inherently different about them, something that made them more likely to target humans?
We may never know for sure, but the story of the Savo Maneaters serves as a powerful reminder that nature is full of mysteries, and sometimes those mysteries can be terrifying. It's a tale that has captivated people for generations, inspiring books, documentaries, even a Hollywood film.
And it's not hard to see why. There's something primal about our fear of predators, especially ones as cunning and relentless as the Savo lions. Their story taps into our deepest anxieties about the power of nature and the fragility of human life.
It's a story that stays with you long after you've heard it. The setting, the characters, the sheer terror of it all. It's a reminder that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
And if you want to capture that feeling, that blend of fascination and unease, I highly recommend listening to the song Tear You Apart by She Wants Revenge. It's got this dark, haunting melody that really evokes the atmosphere of the story.
That's a perfect recommendation to end on. A haunting tale, a thought-provoking discussion, and a fitting musical accompaniment. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember the world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered.